Good morning, venture capital. This is Metagame, and today we're asking why the one thing standing between AI and scale isn't showing up in the checks. 95% of AI pilots fail. You've heard that number. You've probably used it in a meeting. But here's what nobody is saying out loud. Every single one of those failed pilots still generated a threat surface while it ran. Every abandoned deployment still touched sensitive data. Every proof of concept that got killed in month 3 still had access credentials, API keys, and model outputs sitting somewhere in a production environment. The failure didn't clean up after itself. And that is exactly why cybersecurity is where the real money is landing right now. Let's run the numbers, because the numbers are the story. Global cybersecurity startups raised $4.9 billion in Q1 alone. 13 rounds came in above $100 million. 13 in a single quarter. That's not deal flow noise. That's institutional capital concentrating into a sector with the kind of urgency that overrides valuation anxiety. While the broader AI market is watching 80% of enterprise deployments stall out before they scale, cybersecurity is watching that same statistic and pricing it as revenue. The ROI gap that's killing pilots everywhere else is the funding thesis here. That's the inversion you need to sit with. 3 deals anchor the quarter, and each one tells you something different about where the attack surface is expanding. Cloaked raised $375 million in a Series B. That's the largest single cybersecurity round of the quarter. Cloaked operates in privacy infrastructure, identity protection, data masking, the plumbing that sits between AI agents and the personal data those agents increasingly need to function. A $375 million Series B in privacy tooling is not a bet on privacy as a compliance checkbox. It's a bet that AI deployment creates new identity exposure vectors that existing security stacks were never designed to handle. When your AI agent is dynamically requesting access to user data at scale, the old model of authenticate once, trust forever breaks down completely. Cloaked is the infrastructure that replaces it. Tenex.AI raised $250 million. This one is the clearest expression of what you might call the AI secures AI thesis. The same model capabilities that make AI useful offensively, pattern recognition, anomaly detection, rapid classification at scale, are being deployed defensively. Tenex is building AI-native threat detection, which is a replacement cycle, not an upgrade. Legacy security tooling was built to catch human-speed attacks. AI-enabled attacks don't move at human speed. A $250 million round at this stage says investors believe the detection layer has to be rebuilt from scratch, and whoever owns that rebuild owns the next decade of enterprise security spend. Upwind Security also raised $250 million in a Series B, cloud runtime security. This one is the most structurally obvious of the 3 if you're tracking where the infrastructure dollars are going. Hyperscaler capital expenditure is projected at $675 billion for this year. Every dollar of cloud build-out creates proportional attack surface. Upwind is a downstream play on infrastructure spend. Every new workload migrated to a hyperscaler is a new customer problem that Upwind exists to solve. When the cloud gets bigger, their TAM gets bigger automatically. That's not a complicated thesis. It's just a correct one. Now let me break this down, because the KPMG number deserves more than a quick mention. 80% of enterprises say cybersecurity is the single biggest barrier to executing their AI strategy. Not skills gaps, not scaling difficulty, not budget, cybersecurity, and that number was 68% a year ago, 12 points in a single year. Here's why that matters structurally. Most of the other barriers enterprises cite, skills gaps, validation requirements, scaling friction, are at least partially addressable through internal process change. You can retrain staff, you can redesign workflows, you can hire differently. You cannot will your threat surface smaller by updating your org chart. Cybersecurity spend is externally imposed. It's non-discretionary in a way that almost nothing else in the AI infrastructure stack is. That's what makes it resilient through an ROI disappointment cycle. Enterprises aren't cutting security budgets because their AI pilots failed. They're increasing them because the pilots ran. Back to the story. The M&A layer confirms the thesis from a different angle. CrowdStrike acquired SGNL for approximately $740 million, the largest cybersecurity acquisition of the quarter. SGNL specializes in continuous authorization, which is distinct from authentication. Authentication is the door check. Continuous authorization is the question you keep asking after someone's already inside. Should this entity still have access to this resource right now, given what it's doing? In an AI agent environment where automated systems request access dynamically and at scale, that question becomes the central control mechanism. An AI process without continuous authorization isn't just a security risk. It's an unmonitored access pathway with no natural stopping point. CrowdStrike paying $740 million for that capability is a platform vendor telling you exactly what it didn't have and couldn't afford not to own. That's also a comp. Early-stage investors in AI identity, continuous authorization, and runtime governance now have a cleaner exit thesis than they did 2 quarters ago. The strategic acquirers have shown their hand. The policy layer is moving in the same direction. The White House was preparing an AI security executive order focused on federal agency partnerships to defend networks against AI-enabled attacks, framing cybersecurity as a deployment readiness problem, not a research phase concern. A separate review was underway on vetting systems for new AI models due to cyber risk for business and government networks. Neither of these is a regulatory headwind for the sector. Both of them are tailwinds. When federal policy frames security as the gateway to AI deployment, it doesn't slow corporate security budgets, it accelerates them. The compliance argument and the competitive argument are now pointing in the same direction. And then there's Cloudflare, which announced it was restructuring its entire operating model around agentic AI, with internal AI usage up more than 600% in 3 months. That's not a press release. That's a preview of what enterprise infrastructure looks like when AI agents are embedded in every workflow. Every new agent is a new access request. Every new access request is a new authorization decision. Every new authorization decision is a new failure mode if the security layer isn't ready. Cloudflare is showing you the operational velocity. The cybersecurity funding wave is the market's response to it. Here's the competitive framing for anyone allocating right now. The 3 mega rounds this quarter cover 3 distinct subsegments: identity and privacy infrastructure, AI native threat detection, and cloud runtime security. Each has a different buyer inside the enterprise. The CISO, the infrastructure team, the cloud operations group, each has a different competitive moat and a different sales motion. $875 million across 3 companies in a single quarter isn't diversification, it's concentration with a view. Institutional capital has already sorted by subsegment. The question is whether your portfolio has. The 80% barrier number from KPMG is already in board decks. It will be in RFPs and security budget justifications by Q3. By the time that number is universally cited, the best entry positions in the category will have repriced. That's not speculation. That's the standard pattern for any sector where survey data catches up to funding data with a 2-quarter lag. So here's where we close the loop. 95% of AI pilots fail. 42% of enterprise AI projects get abandoned outright. Those numbers are usually read as evidence of a market in crisis, capital deployed without returns, confidence eroding, the spending versus believing divide widening. And in most of the AI stack, that reading is correct. But cybersecurity doesn't need AI to succeed. It only needs AI to be tried. Every pilot that fails still ran. Every deployment that got abandoned still touched data, granted access, and left a surface behind. The failure is the demand signal. The ROI gap that's stalling the rest of the market is the pricing power that's funding this one. $4.9 billion in a quarter. 13 rounds above $100 million. A $740 million acquisition anchoring the M&A comp set. 80% of enterprises saying this is what's blocking their AI strategy. The market isn't confused about where durability lives. The only question is whether you're positioned on the side that's waiting for AI to prove itself, or the side that gets funded every time someone tries. That's our venture capital podcast for today. If you learned something new, tap 5 stars and follow our show. Thank you for listening to Metagame.
Grab news. Thomas.